lead with love, trust yourself, know what you're doing, whether it's for a million people or for yourself. And I think if you create because you want to create out of love and just because it's something that is on your mind and you're like, I need to get this out and see if people like it or not, but the joy comes from the process, not necessarily the destination. If that's where the joy is, then you're going to be okay, because you're always going to be creating for yourself, not necessarily for somebody else.
Welcome to the Bias for Action podcast with your host, Michael Fang. Using my PhD in applied physics and years in long-distance running, I hope to give listeners a chance to go behind the scenes of high performers across a wide range of disciplines and perspectives, uncovering the mindset and habits of those who strive to be the best. This podcast will help you improve your life and accomplish your goals with actionable advice. I had the chance on this episode to talk to Erik Valiente, the founder of the popular running club BlacklistLA. From late night Monday art runs to early morning Saturday marathon training, BlacklistLA attracts runners from all over the city. Not only has Erik organized the 5K just to celebrate the birthday of LA, he has created a lasting impact with his vision to improve the city and give back to those around him. With community in mind, Erik aims to inspire all to go after their dreams. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I have. All right, Erik, welcome to the show.
Hey.
So before we get into Blacklist, I actually wanted to touch on an interesting point that I only recently learned about after doing some research. So you went to college and majored in business management.
Yes.
And now that you've, worked on Blacklist for so long, it seems like, it is that Blacklist is a business.
Yes.
So how have you been able to kind of apply your college learnings into, running such an organization?
Oh man, I would say the last year of college is the one that probably helped me the most. There were, I can't even remember what they were called. There was like capstone classes where we had to do group projects and kind of imagine what we would do if we had an investment or if we had a business that was failing and, you were working with like 3 to 4 people that you didn't necessarily know, and just trying to figure out everybody's schedule to meet together. So I would say what prepared me the most was those one-on-one conversations with the individuals as well as the group conversations, the dynamic of a group being thrown into one without you being able to choose and how to work together. And I think the one that really resonates with me and I remember the most is how important it is to treat people correctly. So like the psychology of business, right? So like you have to have, you have to lead with love and heart for you to get somebody to be invested in the project that you're doing. So I would say those things combined, like treating people the right way, working with the group the right way, and then executing is probably what I learned at CSUN.
Yeah. So what kind of place were you in when you decided, I wanted to run to this Bumblebee mural back, in the very first run of BlacklistLA back in September of 2013. I know that you worked at, you worked in banking for a little bit, but, where were you in that point of life to make you want to do something like that?
And man, you really you deep dived into Blacklist. I haven't heard these questions in a while. Where was I? 2013. So I had come from banking at Chase, and then I was wondering what I was doing with my life in a sense. I like the concept of helping people, especially financially, especially the Latino community, and how to invest and how to, put your taxes into a saving instead of spending it. All those different things I loved about banking. I didn't like the sales part, the goal part. Specifically, one example of selling credit cards to like high school kids, or not high school kids, but college kids. Then they come back 6 months later with like $500 debt. Yeah. I felt responsible because I made $5 to $10 off of that credit card, but now they're in debt $500. So I think that's when I decided to leave and join a footwear company, Nike. I was there, and at the same time, I was in love with running, and I figured out that I wanted to keep moving and exercising and work in some sort of fitness field. So I think the banking experience with the Nike experience, I still didn't get what I wanted, which was the community aspect. I just felt like I was working for a large company, and at the end of the day, I was having an impact, but not direct to the community. And that's what I really was missing, that purpose. So I think at that time when I started Blacklist, it was a perfect storm. Everything aligned where I had figured out that I wanted to exercise, be in fitness, help the community, and also explore the city at the same time. And that took a while, but that's kind of where I was. I was in a place of my life that I wanted to give back to the community the best way I knew how, which was via running at the time.
So was that art run? Did that art run have the intention of starting something that would help back into the community, or did that idea develop over time?
At first, it was more of exploring the street art, right? So it was like there's a lot of murals, coffee shops, libraries, all these different things that a lot of us miss because we're always moving from point A to point B to point C. And if you ask yourself, can you remember something of your commute? You probably can't. And I remember asking myself that before we launched Blacklist. I was like, man, I just drove here and I cannot remember one thing of that drive. And I think I was like, that's a 30-minute waste of my life times 7 days times a year. What am I doing? So I really wanted to have like a modern day stop and smell the roses and give people the opportunity to step outside of their cars. And, when we think of cars, we're thinking of commuting and destinations, and really give them an opportunity to connect with the community and their environment. So at the time, it was like, let's go explore this art in the hopes that many people would show up in the future because they love the experience, they love the art, and they love the euphoric vibrations that running gives you. So I think that's what the hope was, and I hope it's there now.
Yeah, I mean, every time I've come to Blacklist, maybe except once, I've never seen you show up with a car. Like you either run to Blacklist, you bike to Blacklist, or you take transit. Is that the intention? Just try to not use a car, do something that almost forces you to smell the roses, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for me, definitely as a nonprofit director, there's not much money in what I do, so that's one thing. I have to make sure that I live a minimal life. But the other side of it is, yeah, it makes me slow down a little bit. Like I remember commuting to work and then seeing a mural and saying, I'll be back tomorrow. And I never did. But now with transit or with cycling or running, I'm able to stop and actually feel the wall if I wanted to, take a picture of it, observe it, see where the artist put a message. And I really want to give that back to people. So yeah, it's intentional.
Mm-hmm. So you started this art run in September 2013. It was just you and your friends. And then, how did you decide to make this a regular occurrence? And how quickly did that just boom and explode in popularity?
So yeah, we started with friends and a few community members. I would say within the first 6 months, we started seeing 100 people. And I think that was surprising to everybody in the organization, or at the time it was just a group, because we didn't think 100 people would show up on Monday night at 10 p.m. to run and then see street art, especially in a city like Los Angeles where you're always on the go, 10 p.m., you're thinking of work the next day. So we really found that we're doing something great for the community, and there was magic there, and we really wanted to capitalize on that magic. And I think how it grew, it was really the voice of the community. Everything we've ever done till now, it's what the community wants. So we started with Mondays, then eventually that 100 turned into, I have a picture when we visited a Banksy mural. It must be 500 people.
Wow.
At the moment, it just felt like 100. But we were so in it. And then they kept asking, what's next? And I was like, well, we can explore, the city via the metro, so you guys can have a tap card and experience how it is to board a metro. So we did that on Wednesday and Thursday because they wanted more runs throughout the week. And then from there, they were like, why are we running so much? What are we training for? And I was like, well, we can train for the LA Marathon because I always train for the marathon. So if you guys want to join me, we can add a Saturday run. So we added a Saturday run. It was about 7 to 10 miles at the time. And from there, everything else that you see that's part of the organization, it's because the runners have asked for it either directly or indirectly. So we really try to keep our eyes and ears to whatever they need, because without them, we would just be 3-4 people running the organization, and that's it. Yeah.
So when you started this art run, did you already have the name Blacklist LA? How did that come about?
No, we didn't. We called it just, hey, meet me at 10 p.m. at LACMA Urban Lights. We didn't think much of it. The name came from really trying to give back and highlight the artists that we were visiting, right? So we figured a lot of these artists weren't allowed in traditional art galleries because their work was looked at as graffiti or what's it called? What's that other word? Graffiti or vandalism, right? So we were like, how can we give back to the community and how can we showcase this art and give a voice to these people that are painting this mural? And what we found out is that a lot of these murals that we had visited erased within like 2 to 3 months, sometimes weeks, sometimes days. So we were kind of there as a moment in time to memorialize them. And now a lot of the street artists are able to sell their work in galleries. They're looked at as fine art. So it really came from the artists that were blacklisted in traditional art galleries, but now they're not.
So they're whitelisted now.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. And actually, we got some messages from people saying if we were going to change the name or not. But from day one, it was never a negative connotation. So we did bring it up to the board to see if that's something that we need to switch, because I know a lot of people are removing blacklist from a lot of the businesses or master bedrooms and things like that. But I think the community knows where our intentions were.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did you come up with a logo? I know it's a B. There's an oval on top, but it looks like there's like a little message bubble in the bottom circle.
Yeah.
Is there any meaning to that?
So we just changed the logo too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was the story with the logo. I think it was like November or December of 2013, and a lot of our runners were already asking for gear, and we weren't even thinking of this. We started in September, so we were like, all right, what do we come up with? We could just put Blacklist on a T-shirt, but no, we should come up with the logo. So I went home that day and I just played around with the iPad and I was like, all right, there's a B. The speech bubble is because we used to put the distance of the location inside the speech bubble and also what the artist tried to say, right? So if it was like 3.51 miles, I would put a speech bubble next to the mural, 3.51 miles, and then people would show up and then we would give them a message of what the artist was trying to say. So that's why the speech bubble is there. Now we look at that as like, Michael Jordan had his first logo ever, and then he boomed, and then it's time to kind of evolve and have a more graphic, text-based logo with intent.
Yeah.
So you're going to see it in the future where we switch the logo more to a text-based. We worked with the graphic designer that actually runs, and he's participated in our events, and we left a little bit of what's important to me inside the logo.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you have all these runs happening. At some point, I guess maybe Instagram was kind of around at the time, but it probably wasn't as big as it is now. But one thing I found fascinating was, number one, how quickly this event spread through word of mouth. But number two, how well you've branded this whole organization. So one point of this podcast is to give listeners a piece of, actionable advice or something useful they can take away from it. And one question that I thought might be interesting for those trying to start something new is, how do you brand yourself in such a way that appeals to a broad audience or helps people connect with you?
That's a good question. The simplest answer I can give you is be yourself. And I think that's what usually a lot of successful brands say, right? And it sounds like such an easy thing, but it's really hard, especially with all the noise that we have with social media, with friends, family members. Everybody wants to give their opinion, which is good, but at the end of the day, you have to trust yourself. So I would say lead with love, trust yourself, know what you're doing, whether it's for a million people or for yourself. And I think if you create because you want to create out of love and just because it's something that is on your mind and you're like, I need to get this out and see if people like it or not, but the joy comes from the process, not necessarily the destination. If that's where the joy is, then you're going to be okay, because you're always going to be creating for yourself, not necessarily for somebody else. So that's what's helped us stay, a successful brand, I guess you would say, a nonprofit organization in Los Angeles, is leading with love, and our pillars are community, art, and running. So that would be my other point of advice is, as you're beginning something a creative journey, have your foundation set, right? So what are those 2, 3, or 4 pillars that you always want to clear whenever you're creating an event or creating a message that you want to give to the community? Because as it grows, you're gonna, I like to think of like a freeway. You're always gonna have exits, and you always want to make sure that that exit always leads back to that pillar. So you want to be on that highway, understanding that there's going to be U-turns and lefts and rights and stuff like that, but go back to those pillars, and then you're always going to be making the right decision.
And
I don't know if that makes sense or
yeah,
not.
that makes sense. I know you always go back to this quote where you say, commit 100% to something and expect nothing.
Yes.
And that just goes back to, loving the process, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you have multiple runs. You mentioned the Monday night art run. And I guess, did you expect that on a Monday night, the first day that people go back to work on a weekend at 10 p.m., that anyone would show up? And if not, what was the main reason that, you think a Monday at 10 p.m. really worked well for people?
Yeah. I didn't think people were going to show up, to be honest. I maybe 30, 40 closest friends or something. Friend tells another friend. But I think people started showing up because when they got there, they realized that we were exercising. But at the end of the day, they got some pictures to post on Instagram. They got to see a mural. They got to explore the streets of LA that they've never seen before. And it had kind of like a rebel spirit at the time, right? So it was like 10 p.m. We're not supposed to be running out there. We're blasting music, this and that. So a lot of people felt like they were going against the grain in a sense, they were rebelling in a sense. Although we were on the sidewalk, we were doing everything peacefully and everything. I felt like there was a good energy there where people needed to start their week that way, because we always, at the time, we had a bullhorn and we left them with the message, right? So we would be like, hey, this week, try to focus on the positive things in life, be grateful. And I think starting Monday, knowing that you had work, but then ending with this positive run can get you to Tuesday through Friday. I think that's why people showed up.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I also noticed that you, to this day, really know that people love their photos.
Yeah.
And I think even from the early days of Blacklist, there were always, photo taking. I think in many instances, you were the one taking the photo too.
Yeah.
And so you've had runners running out their city, and then you had a few runners carry on this big heavy camera running around as well. So was that camera concept or offering photos of the run offered on day one? If not, how did that idea come about, and when did you realize the value add there?
Yeah, I would say day one, we started adding pictures. That was 2013. It really came from, at the time, DSLR cameras were, I think, easier to get in the market. Everybody had an iPhone or some sort of camera phone, so it was easy to take these pictures. At the moment, I think it was just, this is what I expect if I would go to a run, so this is what I'm going to give back to the runners. And at the time, we only got pictures if you registered for a race. That was the only time you can get a professional picture. And with the boom of Instagram at the moment, or the start of it, we realized that everybody wants to either see their form, share with their friends what they're doing. Who doesn't want a picture of themselves and having a fun experience? So we integrated that from day one. And I think to this day, I have to do my deep research, but we were the first running group that offered that, because outside of that, it was only via marathon, 5Ks, 10Ks, trail races, but not a community run. Mm-hmm. So if somebody finds a group before us, let me know, but I think we did it first.
Not only that, you went to races and started offering photos from the races as well.
Right. Then we started just taking our own pictures, because it's expensive, and as a race director, I understand why it's so expensive to host a race. But there's certain things that you shouldn't be charging for, but I get it. So we went, took our photographers, Hans and Delia, shout out to them. They took some great pictures, and to this day, they still take some good pics.
So let's talk about Happy Birthday LA 5K, because that is, a race that you run. At which point did you realize, forget all these other events in LA. I want my own race, and I want it straight in the heart of downtown LA.
Oh man, it what was that, 2015. I can't remember much of it other than having the conversation with Los saying, okay, so if I think about it, right, let me think about it. So it's we celebrated LA's birthday in 2014. So we were like, all right, you know what? Let's go run in downtown LA. And I'm 100% positive that we're going to find a celebration for the city. It's September 4th, the day it was declared Los Angeles. No doubt about it. There's going to be some sort of festival, so we can go there after. We got to downtown. At the time, we gave them yellow, red, and green balloons representing the colors of Los Angeles. So every runner had balloons and sparklers. So we were going to run through the streets, finding this festival, kind of jump in and explore, right? To my surprise, there was nothing there. There was nobody celebrating LA's birthday. I think we passed by Angel City Brewery and somebody was like, what are you guys running for? We were like, LA's birthday. I thought you guys were going to be happy. I don't know. Like, why is this street closed right now and having a street fair, you know? So then from there, we promised the runners there at the moment that we were going to forever host this race for the city's birthday. So I think that's where it came from a lack of celebration in the city of LA for its own birthday, you know? So we were like, let's just be the ones that throw LA a birthday party.
I can't imagine putting a race in downtown LA being easy. I mean, you have to go through permits, and the permits aren't cheap in an area like that. You know, given that you're telling the city, hey, we're celebrating your birthday, has the city given you any, you know, leeway in terms of getting those permits, or is it just as hard?
No, they haven't. And 3 races, including ours, they're no longer being hosted in downtown for that exact reason. New Year's race, Happy Birthday LA 5K, and Rock and Roll Los Angeles got canceled. I don't know what their reasons are, but I'm pretty sure it has to do with the cost. And that's something that, remember when we were talking about the good and bad of LA? The good is that they want to promote healthy lifestyles. We have the Olympics coming here in 2028. But when you really talk to the city officials and the council districts and all the people involved, the message is different. You know, it's all about money. And I get it, you know, but at what point do you sacrifice a community experience for, you know, having traffic officers closing the street? Yeah. There needs to be a give and take or a broader scope on what community means to the city.
And speaking of community, you also have this run called the Rose Run, where you hand out a bunch of roses to the community. How did that idea transpire in?
The Rose Run, oh, it's one of my favorites. I think we were thinking of Pharrell's Happy. And we were like, damn, that's like such a good song. Like, it's the message is to be happy. Like, how could we give that to runners? So when was the first one? I think it was 2014 or 15. But we went to the flower market in downtown LA because we wanted to buy it from local vendors. And we just placed an order. Got, I think, 200 roses, red for love, yellow for friendship. And even to this day, what I really wanted to give, the message is, no matter what you're going through, you are loved, you know? No matter the hustle that you, or like, I can just go on and on, right? But I just felt like the people that feel like they're not loved, they're alone in this world, with this gesture of giving them a rose, I think it would have, you know, rejuvenated them. It would have gave them some positivity. It would have made them change their lens on life in general. And that's why we chose areas where we feel like we're neglected by the city, or the people that were waking up at 3 or 4 a.m. to hustle, you know, and they were already out there selling tamales or anything like that. And I just really felt like those are the people that are doing it, obviously to feed people and to make money, but it's because they have no other choice, you know? So we wanted to shine some light on them, give them some love. And at the same time, for the runners, it's okay to do something out the blue. You know, you don't have to expect anything. And seeing that whole like dynamic, to this day, it's fun. A lot of people receive the rose. They're confused. They think that they have to give us $1 or $2. And I'm like, no, that's just yours. Pass it on, you know. And from those experiences, I've seen so many smiles, great gestures. So yeah, Rose Run I can't wait to do it again.
So how have you been able to use Blacklist? I know you've been able to host events, as we just mentioned, the Rose Run, Happy Birthday LA, but what were some surprising ways that you were able to use Blacklist to benefit the community as a whole? Have you been able to make any changes in certain areas of the city due to the, you're trying to bring runners to these more, less frequented areas of the city? Has there been an actual impact?
I think so. Two that come to mind is the Vision Zero work that we did for pedestrian safety. We activated Pico Boulevard in Pico Union area near downtown LA. So we really just highlighted how dangerous that street was, and then we were passing out balloons and flyers and brochures of how to stay safe in that area, because Vision Zero is a program from LA that is highlighting the most dangerous streets in LA, because either there's concentrated with a lot of people and there's not a lot of pedestrian walkways, or the cars are too speedy, or the street's not designed correctly. So I would say that was one of the lasting impacts, not only to the community, but also to our runners, to let them know that we care about pedestrian safety. And then the other one is the inspiration from other groups. I hope one day they give us some love. But even if they don't, for me, it's always been about, if we can inspire somebody showing up to our runs to create their own run, then the work's done, Like, I think that is the goal. If you can make more runners with a different taste, because everybody, diversity is great. So why not create a group somewhere else? So I think since we started in 2013, we've seen about like 5 or 6 different groups from our group, so... And they have their own communities now. So when you think of the success of what we're doing, that's what I look at is the growth, the footprint, the inspiration.
Right. So you have the Wednesday metro runs, but I've also seen some workouts happen during the metro runs. So how did those workouts come about? Is that kind of going along with the Saturday long runs?
The workouts, you're talking about like the NTC ones?
The
actual strength training ones?
The speedway workouts.
Oh, the speedway workouts. Yeah. So metro runs were started to, again, explore the city, give people a tap card, and have them try the metro, so to commute to like the LA Rams or Staples Center or whatever. We started introducing speed via the marathon training program. Mm-hmm. So now we don't take the metro as much, because I think it just doesn't work with speed, because we get the lights. So unless we always do a fartlek, you can't really do a tempo run, because you're going to get lights and you're going to mess up the flow. So now we just chose Chinatown Speedway kind of as a home for speed workouts. So we just designed them mostly for beginners / intermediate, but then we can always give advanced workouts for the people that are looking for them. And then if it wasn't for COVID, we would have been at Crenshaw Track that we were able to get the permit there. So we can invite not only BlacklistLA members there, but all the community members to show up if they wanted to. Because as you know, in the city of LA, there's no tracks that are really open. You have to go through a permit process, which is another thing I can rant about for days. But the city of LA needs to open up the tracks. Mm-hmm. We don't own them, but we pay taxes. So we should be able to use them.
Exactly. And then you have Lista. So how did that come about? And was Vanessa the one that really said, hey, we need something for women?
With Lista, it was interesting. It was a conversation that we were having about what should we do on the Wednesday or on a Thursday. Mm-hmm. Should we add NTC? Should we have another run? This and that, right? And at the time, I think there was a lot of articles coming out on Runner's World about females not feeling safe, right, when they're running. That's why they join a running group. Or that they felt judged, or they didn't feel comfortable wearing certain things because, it was a mixed group. So that's when Vanessa was like, why don't we do something with ladies, with girls? And I was like, I mean, sure, why not? Like, let's make it happen. And then from there, I think I just was like, what do you need from me as far as like the organization of it? And then I'll be there to support you every day. And we started that, I think, in 2018. And we're excited to continue to grow that. We're actually creating a small, like a similar team to BlacklistLA, but specifically for Lista, where they have just full control. And it's not necessarily falling on my plate or Vanessa's plate, because Blacklist on its own, it's a lot of work, but we want Lista to grow as well. So I'm happy about that run. It's so fun. There's no ego. The people just show up, they run. If they want to do a speed workout, they can. Yeah. If they want to cut it short, they do. And if it wasn't for that specific location, I think people would be there probably past 10 p.m. but it's such a awkward location that as soon as we're done, we leave. But there's conversations that happen, and it's just fun.
Yeah, so that's really where I wanted to go to next. So you have the Monday night art run. You choose, different mirrors around the city that you want to visit. And then the Wednesday workouts, visiting the metro, exploring different areas of the city. And then Lisa choosing the location for that. And then you have marathon season. You have Saturday miles. You have different routes depending on, what you're training for. So you have all these different routes. How do you decide what route to choose?
For LA, it's easy. I mean, we have to match the elevation gain. We have to find the hills. We can't avoid them. So if you think of Los Angeles, there's Griffith Park that you can get uninterrupted miles. Maybe the Chinatown Speedway if you want to loop that historic park, or the LA River. And then you have the beach side. You have Pasadena. You have not much in South LA other than Bayona Creek. So what I'm trying to get at is we're limited as far as where we can meet up and do a 20-mile run. Mm-hmm. So we chose Griffith Park because it's easy. There's parking there, and then we can take them on a 20 to 22-mile journey when it calls for it. So we try to match the elevation as best as we can, and we just implement the routes, and people love them. I hope. Yeah.
How do you? How have you decided? For each run, would you say what has been your favorite route?
My favorite route.
Yeah.
Oh man. Favorite route. I mean, I guess right now it's the Mamba route for Conran X. To be honest, it's close to me because it's the route that I run daily. But then now I get to share it with the community, attached to a player that I love. So it's like the Mamba miles for sure. But outside of that one, it would have to be when we were running from K-Town to Hollywood, because it was so easy to explain to the runners, and it was a challenging route. So it was like, go down Wilshire, make a right on La Brea, you get to Hollywood, make another right, find the metro station. But Wilshire's rolling hills, La Brea is a small incline, Hollywood's just nuts. And it was cool to be there as a local too. So it was fun. So I would say the Mamba miles, and then the K-Town to Hollywood route.
Yeah, the K-Town route must be, you're going from one neighborhood to a completely different neighborhood. So just seeing that transition is pretty cool. So,
right, seeing like K-Town, Hancock Park, Brookside, and then you get to La Brea, you get to see like all the cool shops, and then you end up in Hollywood. Like it's a tour of LA for sure. Yeah.
So, I guess here's one question that I definitely think that you would maybe like. So one thing I also like to do is a call to action.
Okay.
So this is kind of like your way of just saying something to community, and they had to listen to you. So this question is, if you had a 30-second ad during, say, the Super Bowl or during the Olympics opening ceremony, what would you put in that ad?
30-second ad?
Yeah.
Man, there's so much to say. I think honestly, you are loved. That's the main thing. I think human beings, in my opinion, are just suffering right now, and I don't like to see that. I whether it's via running or anything that we can do, I just want to see people smile, and I think if we could tell them that, if we can tell people that they are loved, they're going to believe it, and then they can pass it on to somebody else. And we would use that with running. So, because I think with running, you can fall in love.
Yeah. So in terms of your own relationship with running, I know that when you started running, you were kind of just trying to get healthy. You worked with Nike, so you knew a little bit about just the sport in general. But I also know that you have huge goals for yourself, right?
Yeah.
You're going after the Boston qualifier. You formed a little side group too to train for Boston. So I guess what do your goals look like for running in general, and what do you get most out of running?
Man, so definitely I'm happy that sub 3's off of my back. And I think I want to get to a 245. So I'm currently at a 255. If I can get to a 245, I'm going to be happy, because then I can coach females to get an OTQ, which is the ultimate goal. So I like to split up the group into two, right? So you have the performance group, and that's where my mind's at right now. It's like, how can I get to a 245 so those athletes can trust me in that journey? And then I don't know if I can go past that because my VO2 max isn't high, and I'm pretty much maxing out as I speak, you know? So 245 is a stretch. And then you have the beginner runner and our community, right? So at the same time as I'm building, this performance side, I also want to be able to still cater to the beginner runner because that's the bread and butter. Those are the people that love running because of what it gives them, not necessarily chasing a time or a goal. And if we lose that community, then running will just be hyper performance, which I don't necessarily like. So I think I have the performance side and then the community side to equip them, having them stay injury free. So for them, what I'm currently doing is learning more about the body physiology, how we can implement different techniques so they can prevent injury early on, how to start with strength training first before you jump into running. Because a lot of the stuff that I remember from basketball was never touching the basketball until a month later. And we don't do that in running. We give people a pair of shoes and it's like, oh, go ahead and take off. Go run your mile without teaching them the fundamentals and basics. There's no such thing in running. We know them as performance athletes, but not as a beginner. You're not telling everybody like before you run, learn how to activate your glute, know what a foam roller is, know the importance of having a strong core and hamstrings, all these different things, right? You don't have to say it like so technical, but they need to understand the importance of strength. So that's what I'm trying to get at with the community is strength first, then preseason hustle, then marathon training. So before it was just marathon training.
Mm-hmm. I mean, at the end of the day, you want people to enjoy running,
Yes.
right? And I don't know how many people I've seen, including myself, just get injured. And losing that connection to the running community is almost like losing all your friends. I mean, if all you do is run, right? And so, yes, motivating healthy habits is definitely important.
Yeah. I really hope that once we introduce it, because it'll be this year that we're introducing it, we're starting a month earlier, that people understand it and start implementing it with their groups, because I think from what I see, not a lot of people talk about strength work as the beginning of marathon training. It's always about base miles.
Right. So are you able to give a little sneak peek for what we might expect from Blacklist, say through the end of 2020 and maybe even into 2021?
Oh man, I think what I love of Blacklist, it's a work in progress. Even now, 7 years later, it's just we try to serve the community the right way with community art and running as the pillars, right? So I would say marathon training for sure. You can expect that to be a little bit different this year because we're going to be expecting more from the athletes from the beginning, but it's for their benefit, not necessarily for the organization. We're also submitting grants as we speak to different companies and organizations to try to get funding so we can explore a little bit more. What I mean by that is we have this crazy, we have so many visions, but the one that I'll share is because the one that I'm excited about is creating like a 3D rendering of a community space that I imagine for Los Angeles because there's not a lot of open tracks, and going through the city, it's difficult. I'm not gonna lie, not everybody can do that. Not everybody has that patience, to be honest. And what I'm trying to get at is having a space where it's a track and field, and inside of there will be a basketball court instead of a football field because you can use that not only for strength training workouts, but there's a performance element to basketball and running, which is the lateral movement that runners usually don't see. We're always moving straight. And there's such a thing called hyper specialization or over specialization, where if you're only running straight, you're going to get injured. But if you introduce side to side movement, so that's what we're going to use that space for. And then have a community space based off of the track and the basketball court. So if we can create that 3D rendering, choose 2 to 3 lots in Los Angeles, put it up there on our blog or like on Instagram, and having somebody try to invest in that project, it's everlasting because now you don't have to go through the city. and ask for permission to use a track. You know, you could just go there. All the groups in Los Angeles and past Los Angeles can show up and be there if they wanted to. They could use it as a space to fundraise. You know, they could put up a projection screen and have a movie night if they wanted to. So it's not just performance, it's really a community hub. So that's where our mind is right now as far as building that rendering. And then a smaller one is a creative slash the future of running. So we're applying for a Tracksmith grant. And my mind right now, it's been on what does running look like in 2050? And is it going to be here on Earth? You know, is it going to be in space? So we're working on a concept of a shoe with thrusters. It's all futuristic, but at the end of the day, that, you know, like when I think of Back to the Future and the Marty McFly shoe, I forget, now is real. You know, so if we can leave this 3D rendering of this experience of how you can run in space, if it works, it works. If not, it was just an idea, you know? Yeah. And I don't mind just putting it out there because I think the technology is already there. It just needs to be put together, together with the waves, right? So like the performance side of meditation, of which beta, theta, all these different waves that we have and how they increase performance, not only performance, but mental health. So the Tracksmith grant that we're submitting has to do a lot with the future of running.
Yeah.
I don't know if that made sense. There's still like concepts right now.
I mean, I can already tell you're not afraid to think big.
Oh, no way. Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at these things today and I was like, yo, like this sounds doable. Like right now, like not the space thruster one, but there's an app idea where if you pass a runner, you get, so you register for it and then you pass, like say if I pass you at the Rose Bowl, and I'm like, man, I always see this guy, but I'm too shy to say hi. You would get a ping. So you get home and you're like, oh yeah, so Michael, like he's okay with getting pings. And then from there, you just kind of take it from there. Like I would request you because we passed each other. So it has to be in close proximity. And if you're okay with it, then we would send messages back and forth and potentially be running buddies. If not, you don't respond, no worries. But at least we know who you are, Yeah. So that shit could be done now.
You can turn that to dating app too.
Yeah. So I'm saying like dating apps already do that. I'm like, why don't we use that for like running buddies? Like everybody needs a running buddy, So yeah.
It's pretty awesome. All right. We're going to come to the end of the podcast here. And what I like to do at the very end is a quick fire round. So it's going to be a series of questions, some short answers, some, one or two choices. And it's just going to be the first thing that pops into your head.
Okay.
So whenever you're ready.
I think I'm ready.
Okay. Do you prefer process or results?
Process.
During your runs, do you want music or silence?
Music.
Favorite post-run meal?
Starbucks coffee.
Work hard or play hard?
Work hard.
What does a perfect weekend look like?
Chilling at home, reviewing what to do for BlacklistLA in the next 2-3 months.
Very nice. And the last one, I always like to ask this because I'm always trying to learn. What book, blog, or podcast would you recommend everyone give a chance to try?
Book, Indoor for sure. Podcast, I'm going to have to plug you in.
Thank you.
Bias for Action.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Eric. This has been a great episode. And good luck with all your future endeavors, rocket thrusters and everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.